Welcome back to Ethereal Material, where the mystical meets the practical.
We are Carla and Priscilla, two professional evidential mediums, and we're talking about anything between the seen and the unseen, that gap in there where it's not real, but it's not real either. And everything is on the table for our dissection. Today, we're just going to talk about what it means to be us, what it means to be a medium just walking around in the world or a psychic walking around in the world, with our additional insight.
And, one size doesn't fit all. So our experiences may not be somebody else's experience. And everybody walking around has an intuition. So you will realize through our series of discussions on this that you're doing this a lot more frequently than you think. But we, as heightened mediums and psychics, I don't know. People ask me, and they probably ask you, I get this a lot, right? After a group especially. Is this hard for you? When you go around everywhere, do you hear dead people? So my answer to that is absolutely not. I do
Yeah.
not. I flip a switch, boom, to start, I flip it
Yeah.
off. However, the shades of gray in between when I'm at a party, when my friends are dating someone, or when I was in high school and dating,
Mhm.
or teachers traveling now, anything that heightened intuition can kind of be grateful, yeah, blah, blah, but can be a pain in the ass, frankly. Because, right, someone comes off so nice,
Yeah.
and you're like, yeah, I don't like them. I don't
Yeah.
trust
Yeah. And you're just like,
them.
oh,
Let
darn.
me
I
give
wanted to like
something,
you, but I don't. Yeah.
right? And then I've talked about this. I get the shade of gray wrong. So I will meet somebody and I will say, I don't trust them. And I don't care if I'm at a party, but in work environments in the past,
Mm.
growing up, I'm like, I don't really like them. But I will miss that they are literally like one step off the ground of evil when versus not. And I just don't like them and say I don't trust them,
Mm.
but I don't get the volume accurately, the score.
Yeah.
Because I've also not paid attention because I'm like, yeah, I just don't trust you. But do you have that problem getting the accuracy, like that they're really bad when you just thought they were shady, that
Yes,
kind of
I think
thing?
I do. I think I do. And I think like you, I get the vibe and I just kind of like turn away. Like that's
Yes, that's
enough
the
for me to
problem.
know.
Yeah.
So because I'm not reading them, I'm just sort of like encountering them at a party, for example. I'm not going to stay and go, why are you like this? Why am I getting this feeling? It's enough for me to know, I don't have to have a conversation with you. And I know you very well, and neither of us are rude in that way. But I mean, I just feel like,
Unless pushed, but yeah.
yeah, of course. But yeah, I would agree that there's like, if there's that shade of gray, it's like a tipping point. Like, and if the tip is, if it's like 51%, it could be anywhere from 51 to 100% evil.
Yeah.
If it's 50, like, all right, I'll give you a chance. I might go a little bit deeper, might look a little bit longer. But I certainly would, the antenna would be up and I would be wary of that person. Now, I don't go through the world suspecting people. I really don't.
No, I don't either. That's the thing. I tend to, because I'm not reading, I
Yeah.
have a block almost
Yeah.
where I
Yeah.
treat
Right.
everyone the same initially. I'm like, hi, hi, hi. And unless they're actually in my wheelhouse for some reason,
Hmm.
do I not even pay attention? But I've absolutely missed some things that I'm like, and people will say to me, you didn't miss it. You told me you didn't trust them. I hear this a lot in my life. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, but I didn't know they were like really bad. Like I thought they were just, jerks.
Yeah.
Like that has happened a lot to me,
Yeah.
a lot.
When I was first starting to work professionally, so this was decades ago, um, and I was just really pumping my ESP muscle. Um, I found that if I made eye contact with even my close friends for too long, that I felt almost like I was invading someone's privacy. And I remember the guy that I was dating at the time, he's like, why don't you make eye contact with people? I'm like, because I feel like when I do, or if I sustain eye contact, that I'm knowing things about them that they may not want me to know. I mean, in a good, bad, or indifferent, and I just felt like, so for quite a while, I'd talk to people while I was looking away from them, or I'd fiddle with something while I was talking to them. And I knew it was, I mean, maybe it wasn't so obvious, but for me, I felt self-conscious about it. And then that sort of settled back in, and because I told myself, I don't want to. I don't, I got enough going on. I would
Right.
no more let somebody come pound on my,
I
door and
know.
demand my attention than I would let some information in my head do that. That's crazy making.
Yeah, it's only because I've been thinking about it more lately, and the burdensome level of it, I thought I was pretty well at ignoring it or just not noticing it.
Mm,
But I realize if the more you, into, first of all, then you have the empaths that are extremely sensitive. I've never considered myself to be overly empathic. I can shield
yeah,
very
me too.
well for the
Yeah.
most part. But I think that being more aware of it almost brings it more to you. So I'm not sure how I feel about it.
Mm,
But where I find living in the everyday life being me is when I deal with a lot of medical stuff. If I go to a doctor, an appointment, I'm like, yeah, this isn't going to work out. I'm not going to like them. And people say, you're being so negative. My mother said that to me half my life. I
mm,
was like, no, I just happen to know. Do I know every detail?
right,
No.
right.
But if you think about it, how often are you fully shocked and surprised by something?
Mm,
Even if I say I'm shocked, someone will say, no, you're not.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like, oh, but it feels like a shock because I should have known that. So
Right,
it's a
right.
shock
Yeah,
on my level.
yeah,
So since it's all I know, I can't sit and overly complain because I love my work.
mm,
But I'm wondering that how much more I was affected in my life without even knowing, because
yeah.
it's all I knew. Like going into a
Yeah, right,
party,
right.
right? I can go into a room, and I'm sure you can. I can tell you if someone's in the area without even seeing them because I can feel them. I can be online at a supermarket, many people can, and I can tell you if I like the person behind me, if I allow myself to feel it.
I can
Maybe,
tell you if a total stranger is pregnant or not. I can tell you the gender of that child. I can just it just sort of drops into my mind without any oh my gosh, it's just like pregnant
right.
boy, pregnant twins, pregnant, and um, it's not necessarily that I don't find that intrusive because I'm not out like milling around in crowds of people all the time. But, I find it interesting because I'm not a mother myself. I've been pregnant, but I'm not a mother. And so, for me, it's like of all the things that should be so
Well, I
spontaneously
wonder if
floating
it's
up
because
in
you're
front of
more
me.
objective with that
That's
too.
possible.
And
Yeah.
I wonder if that's the case. I remember when my mother was 3 months before she passed, as you know, she had this hellacious, AIDS working with her, and
Hmm.
don't get me started on the whole criminal path there and the abuse. But when it was heightened, like to the point where things were broken, not, I don't mean in glasses. They said she
Yeah.
threw them at me, and she had the cast on. She's 90 pounds and has a broken arm and hip. Like she didn't throw that at you. I was so taken back. I remember being in her condo when I was at my wit's end because I didn't know what to do at this point. I'd already, ran everything else and managed everything. I looked at my husband. I felt nothing. And I said, is this how normal people are? Just for lack of a better word.
Right, right.
He goes, what? I go, I don't feel anything. I don't know what's happening next. And not that I know everything, but I went to scan out. We were supposed to go to the city, to the Met Opera, I remember. And my mother's there with, I think, a broken thing. And I didn't trust the lady. She said, I actually I realized I rely on intuition so much. When I had nothing, I had to go upstairs, breathe, and say, what do regular people do? How do they get through the day? What
Hmm.
should I do? Because I rely on full vibe, not just logic. And I had nothing.
Wow. So
And
what did you do?
it got even worse after that. It was bad. The day was bad. Ambulances, police, it was a whole thing. Shouldn't have gone to the Met. But logic dictated that it was okay to go. And
Yeah.
even when I got there and I'm getting phone calls, she fell, she blah, 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 broken hip. They obviously threw her, but whatever. I was like this outside of the Metropolitan Opera. I couldn't, or like this. I I had no thought other than logic. My feelings had just collapsed. My
Hmm.
vibe had collapsed. It wasn't numb, because I know a numb emotion.
Yeah.
It was the vibe was completely gone.
Hmm.
And I realized, besides that being a whole fiasco, later thinking about it, people who run their life mostly by logic, I feel in many ways have it a lot easier. I'm not saying it's right to not use your vibe, right? I wrote a book on using your
Mhm.
vibe. But wow, if you live by logic and not the vibe, that's a lot easier in some. Just make a decision logically, check the box. Now that's different. I'm not saying, because I'm not, nobody considers me overly emotional. No one's ever said that about me. I'm talking about the vibe, not emotion.
Right.
Well, think about it. If you just had no vibe and you just made, well, you're very logical though for somebody who does this work, but you still do this work. I don't
You know,
know. Sometimes
it's
I
so
envy the
interesting.
logical. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so interesting you bring that up because I'm wondering if people can possibly be only logical. You know, we have a sixth sense. Everybody's got one, and it's full of information. Just like my visual field here is filled with information. None of it's relevant to what I'm talking about right now, but nevertheless, there is input visually. I feel it's the same with our sixth sense. But I feel also like people may make decisions, even if they tell themselves, I'm purely analytical, purely logical, that I've come to this conclusion logically, but how would you know to even begin that tracing that solution if there wasn't an inspiration on some level?
Agreed. I don't think it's 100% logical, but if
Mm.
you take someone who, sorry, but I believe there's logical careers, accountants. I have
Yeah,
friends
I
who are
agree.
accountants who believe in
Engineers,
logical,
accountants, right?
engineers, lawyers. They're very logical people. The
Yeah.
doom, 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 doom. People on the autism spectrum. It
Mm,
is made by decision, decision, decision.
right.
Now, I will say, having a child on the autism spectrum, when he has a vibe, it's he will dream and say, he told me, Grandma's going to die when she's 92 in the spring. And he gave me the month. And he
Mm,
told me what the dream looked like, what the room looked like. This
really?
was like 3 years before she died.
Mm,
He didn't give me the date, and everything was right down to the colors of the room, the way, because I had like written it down and done everything.
yeah, wow.
So that was a dream he had, and he has very vivid dreams like that. I don't have dreams. So I'm wondering if because he's so logical
Mm,
and he doesn't have that, let me switch into a vibe mode,
right, yeah,
it comes to him through dreams. So I don't think you can be fully logical, but there is a level of
yeah,
I live in a house full of people that live by logic.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm the one that's like, I don't know if we should go right now. I think it might rain. I'm saying all that. We need to bring this. And they're all like, but then I'm usually right. But it is, I don't know,
Yeah,
it's not that easy to be us. I'm not
I think
crying in the
I'm
violin.
I'm fascinated by your, that moment you were talking about where the vibe was just absent
Oh,
and
I
how
remember where I
disorienting that must
stood.
have been, just because
I was thrown.
I know, even though I'm not going to myself, oh, I'm making an intuitive decision to go to this place before going to that place, or I'm making an intuitive decision to delay my departure. Well, I don't say those things to myself or go, oh, I'm having a feeling
Right.
I should or shouldn't. It's so much a part of the engine of the way that I roll
Exactly. The engine.
that
Perfect.
I think, I mean, I know I'm operating intuitively, if not as much, if not 50%. I mean, that is the underpinnings of the logical decisions I make. And I have found when I am indecisive,
Mhm.
when I can't find a solution, when I'm not settled on something, it's because my logical mind, which you're right, I'm very practical, very logical, conflicts with something that I feel intuitively. And
Right. That's the
I'm trying to
indecision.
make myself do something logically, but I procrastinate. I drag my feet. I can't. Do I really want to do that? Don't I want to do that? And I feel like that when you admit the information from your sixth sense, I feel like a person achieves a level of discernment that makes decision making, peaceful decision making, a lot easier. Like
When
no
you know,
buyer's
you know.
remorse, no second guessing ourselves. We just,
Well, it's when you know, you know.
yeah,
But a logical person will know they know because they've checked every box and that's what I'm
yeah,
doing. And if the decision isn't right, they won't regret it. They'll say, well, I did everything I was supposed to. It's
yeah,
very interesting. I
yeah,
feel like there's a bit of a heavy backpack upon people who are like us.
mm,
And again, not crying the blues. I
right,
love everything, but it is not that easy because we will sense and know things, not everything, but before they happen or whatever. And, I'm rarely blindsided. In
yeah.
fact,
So,
I admit, I don't know how to be blindsided because on some level,
Yeah.
I've gotten a drop of something about something somewhere. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Right.
It's
Right.
weird. And I could say I was shocked. You probably heard me say, I didn't expect this. I didn't expect this. And then I'll say, well, I did have that vibe when I was
Yeah.
so and so years old that this could happen when I was this age. You know,
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
don't know. It's
Yep.
very interesting.
It's so, I think just self-awareness is such a mystery, and it's so important to be curious about that and not to shut it down. I mean, we're so used to our logical minds dismissing the non-logical, like, oh, I'm making that up. Because intuition is right alongside your imagination there in your subjective unconscious mind, it's very natural to say, oh, I'm just making that up, or I'm imagining things, or whatever, when in fact, we can be, as I agree with you, too analytical. And I think that can lead to also people who are, it's its own issue if you can't make a decision. I know somebody who spent 3 years trying to determine this was back in the day when we had stereos, which stereo system to buy. And by
Mhm.
the time he arrived, 3 years, I shit you not, 3 years. And by the time he arrived on the model he wanted, it was obsolete.
It was gone.
He had
Yeah.
to start the process all over again. And I was like, pull the freaking plug, just or
Made the
pull the trigger
decision.
rather, like choose
Right.
something already, and um well, that's a whole other pathology, but
Yeah, that's a thought for another day.
yeah. But it is interesting. I can't imagine your feeling of that, like one of your senses just goes like
I had
that
never
would be
felt it
like
before.
now suddenly I can't hear.
I had never felt it. And I had been through trauma with my mother, trauma with this was not this was one of the bad ones, but it wasn't emotion. I had
Yeah.
already been through and later had even worse with her.
Mm,
This was the time that I literally froze and said, is this what normal people feel like? I have nothing. I walked away, tried to break the energy, went up to a different floor and said, I don't even know who I am. I didn't know me.
mm,
And it wasn't I wasn't crying. It wasn't an emotional breakdown. I clearly went to the opera that day or whatever we did. I'm trying to even think of it. Oh no, it was at the Met, but it wasn't the opera. All right, that came back to me.
mm,
But I was able to go on with my family and do whatever. But that feeling of this is what regular people feel like, it was not, my stuff wasn't there. My
what do you
backpack
think that
wasn't
why
there.
do you think that happened? Were you overwhelmed?
I'm wondering if the overwhelm didn't trigger it or because all of this, as you well know, weird stuff around my mother that I could not save the woman from the
Mm,
weird stuff, for lack of a better word, that occurred that was so supernatural. If that was just taken from me and I wasn't supposed to, because of my intuition, I would have thought A, B, C and vibed my way down all the things that could happen, not logic, vibed it,
right.
and it would have played out differently had I not gone to the opera. Maybe
Mm,
not, but logically it would have. So I feel like it was almost stopped for me and blocked and been like, Carly, you're interfering with your mother's path, and we have to block you
yeah.
because you're going to save her, and this can't be.
Yeah. That's
It
interesting.
was crazy because I'm telling you, I've given birth. I almost died giving birth. I've had some stuff, and that has never happened to me.
Mm. Yeah, I can only, like, again, because I consider the sixth sense as vital to my navigating the world as my five physical senses. Like if one
It
of them
is.
suddenly
No,
went
it
away,
was weird.
like a
Thank God it
whole,
didn't last.
yeah, a whole channel of input just goes quiet on
Yeah,
you,
it
or
was
goes
like
dark,
you turn the TV off, gone.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
let
there
me
you have
ask
it.
you this. Among people that, let's say you go to a party or you're not at work, you're just socializing. Do you tend to tell people what you do?
At this point in my career, I kind of avoid it.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I started, I was a little more open.
Mm,
I don't lie, but there are certain circumstances, especially if I'm going to a doctor or I'm going
yeah.
somewhere with religious people or around a crowd of people that, whatever I think are going to be a problem. And I'll never see again.
You're right.
They'll say, what do I do? I will say I spiritually coach, which I
That's
do.
that's what I say. Yeah.
But I leave out the I talk to dead people thing. And I didn't used to.
Yeah.
And a doctor pushed me when I said spiritual coaching at one point, and he pushed me. And then I said something. He threw his chair back, rolled back, and laughed in my face
Mm,
and said, so you're a cold reader? my mistake was, I
Mm.
said, yes, but my meaning of cold isn't yours. He goes, so you just do it, because cold readings has a negative connotation.
Yes, it does.
I mean, I come in cold. I don't want to know your name. I don't want to
Right,
who you are. I want to know nothing about you. I'm just going to show you what I can do.
right.
And he was like, well, don't tell people. They'll think you're crazy. And he just kept laughing at me.
Mm.
And this guy was a neurologist for the record. This wasn't, just like, I
Right,
wasn't at like a dermatologist. Not that I'm knocking that, I'm going to one, but this guy is
right.
of the mind is my whole point. And he laughed at me and said, never tell anybody that. I looked at him, I go, well, I tried to avoid telling you. See, look what happened. And of course I got a little snotty because I
Touche.
did.
Good. That was a
Well, you
great.
know me, that
Yeah,
dental hygienist you talked about in the other podcast, she would have been taken down if
yeah.
she done that to me.
Just
I
if I
thought it was
think if I
funny.
was less dissociated and more grounded,
Yes, yes,
I would
that's
have been able
why.
to follow through with her. But
So
you know,
yeah, that's a great question, Priscilla. How about you?
I like you. It depends. If my mother's introducing me to a bunch of her friends, I say, "Oh, I'm a coach,"
Yeah.
or I'll say I'm a hypnotist or something. And I had one person say to me, like, while laughing derisively, "You can make a living at that?" This
Oh,
big
I've heard that. I've heard
bloviating
you can.
fatso, dude. I was like, yeah, all right. Let's talk about like hypnosis for weight loss or quitting smoking. I mean, you're ticking all the boxes of bad habits, dude, but whatever. Um, yeah, and he was like just cutting me down because it was so, this is just bullshit.
See,
Uh,
that's a good point. I hold your thought. I don't mean to interrupt, but the people that cut down
mm,
what we do, because
yeah,
we're talking about us being us, I find are the most insecure people, or people are afraid you'll come up with something that's a
right.
big secret, or
That's right.
something about them, which I can assure everyone we actually don't. When
We
we go
don't.
to a party, we don't know who you're sleeping with, we don't know what bank you robbed, we don't know any of this, okay?
Right,
We
right,
don't care.
right, right.
So I find that those are the worst people who come at you with defense because they think you're going to know
With the
something.
loudest, the blustering, the prove
Yeah,
it to me stuff,
the
I'm like,
mocking
no, okay,
and
right, the
whatever.
mocking. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard, I don't get that much anymore, but I had a little one the other day.
I did this is quite a while ago, a message circle. It was a group of strangers. It was not like so I had put it on in a place where I was working. So the people came from my mailing list. They didn't all, come together. So it wasn't a family, a group of friends. And in this way, the way that I was doing it back then is I was going around the table as opposed to just sort of free form letting the spirit people come in as I do now. So I'm going around the table. There were like 12 people there. I get to person three, and they make the connections. Everybody loves it. I get to person four. And as I'm reading person five gets up, slams the chair. This is ridiculous, and stomps out of there.
Scared
I
you to
kept
tell me the
going
damn
on and
thing.
on and on. Well, it turns out at the end, it was his wife that I was reading. And she said, I think he's having an affair.
I knew that's what
I think
happened.
he was afraid because everybody was going, yep, you're right. Yep, you're right. Well, person one, person two, person three, that he went like, oh shit, I got to make a big fuss about how stupid and ridiculous
Yes, that's what I'm talking
and how
about.
my wife dragged me here and now I'm going to leave. So she did get back to me half a year later to say that they had split up. And, um, but I think, a lot of those people who are afraid that we can see right through them because so many people, and it's sad, so many people are so insecure. They have these masks and they have these images, and it's important for them to be perceived a certain way. And they feel like, if anybody can, say like that little story with the emperor's wearing no clothes, with the kids like the emperor's wearing no clothes,
Mhm.
then their whole illusion that they're maintaining, the whole narrative that they're sticking with. This is my story. I'm sticking with it. Damn it, it falls apart. So there are times when I will just say, like I'm a coach, and there are other times where I will not say what I do because I don't want people to interrogate me. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know
was
if
going to
you've
say the
ever,
questioning can happen.
yeah, and I don't mind questioning about the work itself, but
Oh, I don't
like
know.
the questioning, like, oh, how does that work? Like where there's, they're trying to
Inquiry.
draw me out and die, but the questioning, like, and not even the interrogative type, like with the bloviating, windbags, but with the people who are like, well, what do you see for me? Like right now, I'm having this problem, and what do you
I
see for me?
know.
I just
And it's
like,
very simple. I see nothing because I'm not
yeah,
working. I'm
right,
flipped the switch.
yeah,
And it's not like I don't want to help people, but I
right,
really don't see anything. If I'm Carla and I'm out somewhere, I'm just out somewhere. Granted, I might be like, oh, I don't like that person, but that's for me.
yeah,
It's not for anything else. And I don't let that shade of gray come out to try to figure it out because I'm
right.
not going to see you again.
Right.
I actually always say now, when I'm doing a group reading, I did a group the other night and I said it because I knew one gentleman there, it was defensive and was going in just to mock and see if it was real, but he had respect
Um,
because the person throwing it, he was connected to. So he was not a problem. I actually said, do you want to connect with anyone? And he said, no. I said, so I'm going to leave it. But what I'll do is say, I'm not here to out your skeletons in your closet. I'm
yeah,
not told what they are. So if
right,
I get a name, which is true, when I get a name or a situation or a landmark, don't think I have the whole story
right.
because I actually don't.
That's
So
right.
that is not only true, I say that because I need them to relax.
Yeah,
And if I do get a little of the story, like even of a vibe of, oh, they are, doing whatever, what kind of job would that be if I said
right.
that?
Exactly.
And
Never work again in this
yeah, am I
town,
going to get
right?
work when, so I don't want to go there. That's not what
Yeah,
I'm doing. I want to do mediumship and bring through, validations, not stir up problems with people.
right, right. Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, again, I'm not going to play, this is my big thing, play the violin on that it's hard to be us, but it's not that easy. We
yeah,
contend with a lot, and I'd like to continue that in
yeah.
another more podcast about this,
Yeah.
on what
And
we
because
contend in our shoes.
I do too, because people's perceptions of us, um, well, we can all say we don't care what people think about us, but we do because we have to live. And I mean, I live in a small town. And, I've been a very public figure. I was elected to my town board as a psychic. So it is a small town. I was on the library board. Everybody knew I was a psychic. So it was, and there'd be the people with a, bluster, but people in my town, for the most part, treat me, pretty respectfully. But when I've gone other places or I've been a guest at to give an event in another place, sometimes there are protesters outside, sometimes there are people who, throw a rosary at us, or
Ah,
just like, you're doing the
repent.
devil's work. I had a former sister-in-law give me a letter calling me a whore of Satan, so I mean there can be levels, but and I think probably every profession to some extent. There are people who hate cops. There are
Oh,
people
well, they hate
who
lawyers. Every lawyer's
lawyer,
hated.
sure,
Cops are
right,
hated.
right, right.
I'm not sure about window washers. I haven't heard that yet. I just have my windows washed. That's what came to my mind. Or there's a car wash. There's things that they're not hated, but there's overall general professions
Yeah.
that are hated.
That people have their preconceived notions about, let's say, and they're not interested in,
They're looking at this, not
right. Yeah.
this. Yeah, so
But
that's it.
it's interesting to be us, definitely.
It is kind of interesting to be us.
Both in the internal landscape and as we work
Yes, the
our way through the
external
external
landscape.
landscape
Yeah.
as well. Yeah. But we can close on this thought, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it too. I feel what's come with part of this, with the 30 years of doing this psychic and mediumistic work and hypnosis too as well, I can absolutely say, I feel entitled, and I'm choosing this word very specifically. I feel entitled to the creation of my own life in a way that I don't think I would have been able to unless I was working as a psychic. I feel entitled to ask the higher powers that I believe in to support me, to guide me, and to correct me. Or, if I need correction, or to to help me shape myself, to help me rid myself of my fears. I believe there is, because I've seen it evidentially, greater powers than my own mind. And I feel comfortable enough with this notion that I am not shy about asking God. I'll say the word God because I believe in God. I'm not shy about asking God or demanding from God as a beloved creation, and what I've inherited as a child of God, which is the right to joy and happiness and health, and to say, step in for me now, or to join forces, or to, I'll tell, like the little prayer I'm telling myself. I got a sticky note, um, which is just, angels help me to recognize my absolute unity with God. I just have it on a sticky note on my computer, because I want to remember, and I think I do for the most part, that I'm not just operating on my own battery power. I'm connected to something,
Absolutely.
and that is just enormously that's an enormous security. And I think people in our profession who work, whether you work with the energy healing of Reiki or whether you work with, you know, psychometry or psychic powers, I think you can't ignore that you're not doing it by yourself. And that's a good
Oh,
thing.
yeah. I mean, that's like a mic drop right there.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not, I always say I do this because I'm being guided to do this and helped
right,
and supported. It's not when I don't feel an arrogance to it. I feel
right.
a confidence, I'll give you that.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't have an arrogance because I feel that I am supported and,
Mhm.
for another day. But when people make judgments against us, and they've obviously made something up that they think they believe that they
Right,
reconstructed from something else,
right.
it's just not accurate. I believe that we are supported and shown to help people.
Yeah, yeah. I do too. Gives me chills. I love it. Well, I love just shooting the I was gonna say shooting the shit, but I don't think we can say that. So
I
just
think you
shooting the
probably
breeze,
can, but I
even though I
don't
just
know.
did.
You did. I think you can.
Can bleep me out. Um, but I love talking to you. I love just exercising our minds on these kind of topics. And of course, we love to hear from you guys. What do you want to talk about? What do you feel about, your own psychic experiences or even in your profession? What's it like to be you? How does your profession impact the way you interact in the world at large? And are there people you protect yourself from and don't really describe what you do? Are there people who challenge you, get defensive, or you can tell right away that they're challenging you because they're insecure? We would love to hear these stories. So if you're listening to us on Buzzsprout, please send us some fan mail. We cannot answer you directly unless you give us a contact information for you, a number we can text or an email, or you can. Oh, we're on TikTok, Ethereal Material. We're on Instagram, Ethereal Material. We have a couple of websites, I'm sorry, emails, Ethereal Material Podcast, info at etherealmaterialpodcast.com, and connected with
Ethereal
our
Material
YouTube
Pod
and
at
Instagram,
Gmail.
right, etherealmaterialpod@gmail.com. So lots of ways to reach us, or you can just Google Carla Blaha or Priscilla Karashi. It's all going to come up. We have a pretty robust online presence because we got a lot to say.
We have a lot to say, and we'll say a lot more.
And we
And we
will.
might even get a little snarkier and all that.
Yeah,
But we
we
never
come like
know.
it is certainly like the way that we
Yeah.
experience it, respectfully but irreverently, usually through and through. So nice to that you joined us today, pulled up a chair and sat and talked with us. And until we meet again, keep believing
Keep questioning.
and please keep in touch. Bye.